Yeah, so what was what was said, like I met Angel at a YPA event, and that's what I want to start off talking about is like because this is a young people's meeting. Like the young people's events are so important for me at least, but like just to see like that there are young people in the program and that there's still fun stuff to do. And so the topic I want to talk about today is kind of what led me to this meeting and God's will versus my will. So I was born, I'm going to share some experience, strength, and hope. I was born September 2nd, 2002 in Savannah, Georgia. And I grew up with a one parent in recovery and one parent in active addiction. And for me that was difficult because I saw what I could be and what I might be. And I ended up, not choosing the advantageous path. But so I had my first drink when I was 10 years old. You know, I was just sneaking around stealing liquor, and you know, it wasn't like I had any problems, but every problem I did have went away. Like I had that aha moment. Um, I had that like, oh, okay, this place is bearable with the right stuff. And I spent a lot of years, well, I mean, a lot of years. I spent 5 years unimpeded, just getting away with it because who's gonna think their 13-year-old child is drinking before school? So like I got away with it for a lot of years, and I um I got sent to my first AA meeting when I was 15 years old, and that was that planted the seed for me. I went to an AA meeting, and I still remember this vividly. I'm sitting there. There's this guy kicking heroin next to me, and he's withdrawing bad, and he just goes, he's just looking at me, and like, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'll never be like that, and those nevers always turn out to be, bottoms for me. I'll say I'll never do this, and it's just like, no, it's not a never, it's a yet. It's just you haven't reached that point of depravity yet. So I went through a lot in the years I was drinking. Car crashes. I broke my leg running from the police. I had guns pulled on me. Like a lot of stuff happened to me where it was like this crazy stuff that like if I had just like been a normal child and not been so obsessed with, you know, whatever form of alcohol I could find, I wouldn't have been put in all these situations, but like my disease drove me to these situations. And like I went there willingly, like once the disease said jump and I said how high. And that was really tough for me. But I learned a lot in those situations. But the thing is I learned that like slowly that when I did have enough, I'd get sent to an AA meeting, by my dad who was in recovery, and there would be this fellowship there. You know, it was a little different because I was 15, 16 at the time, and I went to a young people's meeting, and like I was expect I it was like the youngest person there besides me was like 18 or 19, and like when you're 15 you're like, oh man, that's old, and now I'm like 22 and I'm like, man, I am not even close to being old. um but like I was like so upset and like I'll never get this. And it was tough. I went through a lot. But you know as much as there was physical and like mental drain on me, it was really that spiritual malady they talk about. Like I wanted to die every day when I woke up. My prayers weren't, you know, God get me out of this. It was God, please just kill me so I can just stop doing this. And that was rough for me. And I'm glad to say because of this program, I haven't had a thought like that in a long time. Because so my sobriety date now is 9/21/22. I haven't felt the need to have a legal drink at all, and I haven't felt the need to drink in 2.5 years. Um, but I had a lot. I've had periods of time before that, and relapse is a part of my story. I'm not a first time winner, not by a long shot. Um, you know, but I every time I went to AA, I always had to learn the hard way. And that's something I'm trying to change this time. I had to try out my will every time. Like, and that's why I chose my will versus God's will, because my will is, I'm going to put anything into my body that makes me feel not how I feel right now. And then I am going to ignore all the consequences until they pile up and my problems of my own making fall on me. That's exactly what I do. That's how I that's how I used to function. And even in sobriety, I would, I would do all kinds of stuff that was like, led me to other fellowships later, like, because I was like, oh, I might be sober, but I can, do this or I can do that. And it was all my alcoholism just being like, you cannot sit with yourself and you don't have your higher power isn't like you know, like you're not in line with your higher power, and it was just painful, man. Um, I spent years and years just being miserable. I spent 2 years. I remember on my 2 year anniversary, I was miserable, and I was like, why am I so miserable? And that's because although I had stopped using the drugs and alcohol, I had not stopped using the behaviors that I used the drugs and alcohol to fix. I hadn't fixed those feelings inside of me, and they were painful. And my life got unmanageable with, in sobriety, and that was tough. But the thing and then I relapsed, and that was rough. That was very, very rough. Um, but I got back on the horse. I remember I had left detox to go to leave to go do substances. And my friend picked me up on the side of the highway and took me back to detox. And he said, "Look, man, you never have to be in a situation like this again. Like you can either go back in or you can, just go out there and because like my luck isn't, because like I always wanted to die when I was using. My luck isn't I'll die. My luck is that I'll be spiritually bankrupt for the next 40 years and, just go on to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, and death. You know, that's what happens to me. I've been in one institution or another, for like over 10% of my life. But like today, I'm not like that. And it's simply because of this program. You know, God's will for me, a lot of the time I don't know what it is. Late recently I do, but I definitely always know what it's not. You know, because like I can feel that, like, whatever you want to say, a conscience, God, whatever you want to say, like I'll be doing something wrong and I'm like, sometimes when I'm doing stuff right, it's silent, but when I'm doing stuff wrong, it's like, no, that's not what you're not supposed to be doing that. And like I used to not listen to that at all. I used to just be like, well, it's like when they say like put warning signs on like, cigarettes. Like I know the risks associated with this, but like I just wasn't paying attention. Um, but like doing God's will is a lot different for me. It's going like to speak a little bit about like some stuff I've involved with in and outside the program, like you know I used to sponsor guys before I moved, and I'm looking to sponsor again, but I used to sponsor guys before I moved, and you know they would come to me with a problem, and I would give them advice, and it would be the exact advice that I needed to hear, because I can spot it in other people, but I can't spot it in myself. And that's God's will working for me as they had, my sponsees, these dudes, sometimes they were older than me, which was always funny because I was like, I was trying to figure out, like what do I tell this dude? He's got like a wife and kids, and I'm like, I just dropped out of high school. And like, but that's the thing is like this disease doesn't care who you are or what you've done, what you've accomplished, anything. It'll bring everybody to their knees in like in their own special way. Like, like it says like I mean, and a lot of people talk about it. It's like our bottoms don't have to be the same. Like a lot of people, low bottom drunks, like I just like I'm consider like a lot of people have told me I'm a low bottom drunk, but I consider it I'm just stubborn. I can't learn things the fun way, like the right way. Like it's not like a badge of honor or anything. It's like, man, you really suck at this. But like I finally learned that like if you hit your head against the wall for long enough, nothing's gonna happen. Like you gotta find a way around. Like you know, there is no like solving a problem just by doing the same thing. And that's what the second step is all about for me. The same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Insanity. That's what the definition of insanity is. And for me, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and like not even expecting a different result, but just knowing that same result's coming and just being fine with it, just being complacent. And like for me, um, you know, God's will is so important. It's brought so many people into my life, that whether they're there for me or they're there for them, God, like, even if it's, using my defects as a tool, God always works everything out, or a higher power. I struggled with, because like I say God's will, but like I struggled with religion for a long, 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 long time. And, finding my higher power, I would come into these meetings and somebody would be like, man, higher power, like somebody would say God, and I'm like, man, I don't want to hear about this. Like, I just want to like stop drinking so I stop getting all the consequences. And that was like how I existed the first couple times I came into AA. And I white knuckled it. And like white knuckling it, it'll get you some time, but like the thing is once you do it for the right reasons and like just sell, like, I used to think that people who bought into AA sold out. And it's just like it's not selling out. Like it's literally getting on a lifeboat, like the last lifeboat out. Like for me at least, like there's this old there's this old saying that my dad always used to say. And it's I'll say it real quick, but he said there was this guy in a hurricane, and he goes, and he gets on top of his house because the floodwaters are coming up, and he says God's gonna send, like he prays to God and he says, save me from this hurricane, and a boat comes by, and the guy's like, oh, I don't need your boat, like God's gonna save me from this hurricane, and then he gets to go farther up on the roof because the floodwaters have gotten even higher, and another boat comes by and they're like, hey, like, you gotta go. And he said, God's gonna save me. Like, you don't have to worry about me. And finally, a helicopter comes by, and the helicopter says, hey, get on, like, you're gonna die. And he says, like, I'm good, like, God's gonna save me. And so the guy dies, and he goes to heaven, and God's like, how are you enjoying the afterlife? And he said, God, that's good, but like, why didn't you save me? And he said, I sent two boats and a helicopter. And that's the thing, is like God will send you exactly what you need. Or a higher power, the universe, or whatever you believe in, karma. Like whatever, personally you believe in, what goes around comes around. And like for me at least, for this alcoholic, everything's going to happen for me the way that it's, intended to happen. It's just like, am I being the best version of myself? Um, am I not drinking and drugging, because like, and that's the easiest, or not the easiest part, but that's like the start. Because like when I stop drinking, I become the person I am on, when I'm drinking without any solution for my problems. And this program is the solution for me. Um, you know, I hated this program for a long, long time. It was just like it felt like a chore. And then like you keep going and you keep going, and then you're like your life gets better and you start like building connections, real connections, and like you become a real person again. And like, for me, like I became a real person again. And like I started to cherish every meeting I went to, not only because it's good for me, but like that spiritual awakening that happens at the end of the steps, you know. Step 12, it's in my top 12 favorite steps. Um, the thing is like when you have that spiritual awakening, you know, whatever it is, you know, a change of mind, a change of consciousness, you know, I get caught up in the terminology, but like that's step 12, getting through the steps. It's an accomplishment and it was the best thing that ever happened to me because, you know, this guy told me, you know, this guy was like, I got in a car accident today. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And he was like, yeah, but it was a spiritual experience for me because when the first thing happened, when the car hit the back of my car, my first thought wasn't, oh, fuck that guy. It was, or excuse me, sorry, screw that guy. It's, I hope everybody's okay. It's about like shifting that mindset from like all I care about is getting what I want when I want it because I'm this big piece of crap at the center of the universe to just being like, hey, I'm just a person living my day a day at a time. And if I can help out other people along the way and help them, you know, live their days a day at a time, like, you know, that's that's all I need, you know. You know, I've been in situations where I didn't necessarily have like a roof over my head or food in my stomach or all these things. And like, you know, it all sorts of works out as long as I just keep giving back and just keep working this program. You know, I'm not saying you're going to get rich, but like for me, I don't know. I don't think I've met somebody in this program whose needs haven't been met. And that's by, you know, spiritually and physically, you know. I remember I went to a meeting and I didn't have any money and I didn't have any cigarettes and some guy gave me a cigarette and bought me dinner. And you know, I'm not saying to, you know, use and abuse that, but I'm saying like there will be people here, you know, we care for each other, you know, and I care for every single person in this room. And congratulations to everybody who has, you know, whatever time you have, you know, whether it's just starting right now or whether it's, you know, congratulations on a year or you know the people with multiples or you know it's that you know thing of seeing like a person with one day like there's this old AA saying where they're like it's you know seeing a person with one day say another to another person with no days like hey don't like you don't want to be alone like when you're alone you're in bad company like it's you know these little things that like watching somebody help someone else because you've been able to help them or watching somebody that you've been able to help like that used to help you you're able to help them now like I don't know it like brings me joy and like when I'm doing the right thing things seem to work out you know there might be hiccups along the way like I've lost friends family you know I've you know lost situations you know opportunities but like as long as I just work this program and just continue to work a day at a time, like there's gonna be bad days. Like I don't lie to people like that. Like it's not, you know, all buttercups and rainbows. Like it's not like, you know, the best thing ever. But like it's 100 times better than what it used to be. Because when I live by God's will, I don't want to die. And I wanted to die every day. And now I want to live every day. I wake up every morning and I say a prayer of gratitude because, you know, I'm able to just I'm able to get out of bed, you know, out of a bed that, you know, I'm not, you know, sharing with two other people, you know, and like in a room, my own room, in a dorm. I'm able to go to class. I'm able to do all these things. And I don't have to rely on some substance to do it. And I don't have to rely on someone else to do all my stuff for me. Like I'm a person again. And I'm, you know, when I do God's will, I kind of, you know, I don't, I have not, since I've been trying to do God's will, I haven't been put in any more institutions. And, you know, not anything against institutions, but like I ended up in them pretty frequently. And, when I work on my mental health and my sobriety and all these things, like jails, institutions, and death aren't these certainties for me anymore. You know, when I do God's will, there's not a certainty. They're a possibility, but they're not a certainty. When I'm doing the opposite of God's will, they're a certainty for me. So, you know, keep coming back. This I love young people's meetings. And just for everybody out there, just keep holding on and just keep doing it. All right. Thank you.